Yeah, I have a story about one of the world's largest reinsuring companies, Munich Re, which has reported in January the disaster numbers for the year 2018. And so this was about $160 billion in total disaster losses. And so some company representatives in interviews and also in the report said that climate change is sort of clearly having an impact on these disaster numbers. And I found this curious because they mentioned that just a handful of really big disasters, for example, the California Camp Fire, were the major drivers of this 160 billion number. And so, as we talked about in a previous Power Hour, the wildfire climate connection is plausible, but it's really difficult to sort of fingerprint human climate impacts in that. So much more relevant are things like, for example, the power lines PG&E didn't properly maintain, apparently, and other things like that. But on the broader picture, I just want to reference the work of Professor Roger Pielke Jr. From the University of Colorado, who has worked on disaster losses since 1990, has a recent study out. And he found that as a percentage of GDP, the disaster losses are actually slightly downwards since 1990. So this is probably not good news for a reinsurance company because they want obviously to have a high threat level, at least in theory, not really in their books. But so the actual data points to humans being able to better protect their wealth. Of course, the total disaster toll each year should increase because we are creating more wealth, which is in harm's way. So every time the same hurricane hits Miami, after 10 years, there's more wealth in Miami. And obviously, the absolute number of disaster losses would go up. But as a percentage of GDP, which is sort of a measure of, is this disaster damage actually getting bigger in terms of how much wealth we create? This seems on a downward.
Well, that seems true to an extent, although we would also like to see certain kinds of climate mastery technologies that would get better and better at protecting you from hurricanes, right? So to protect you from damage. So I see that, yes, there is more wealth at risk, but you would also like to, with the same climate. So I think the idea is with the same climate, there will be more and more wealth at risk, but hopefully there will also be more climate mastery to counter that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. So the question is, we've seen in sort of the death rates from climate-related disasters, we've seen a decrease in absolute numbers. But for the wealth that gets destroyed by disasters, we're not quite there yet. So we are better at protecting human lives than we are protecting homes and other assets.
Yeah, well, I think there are a whole bunch of risks that are encouraged by bad government policy that in particular will manifest themselves more in terms of assets than in terms of people. Because if you just,
right.
if you know with things like flood insurance that you can live below sea level and that you'll get bailed out, then you'll probably take advantage of technology to protect yourself in terms of to flee the area. So you probably won't die, but you're a lot more likely to put wealth at risk irrationally.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. And you only get bailed out if you settle in the exact same spot again for the next flooding.
That's a good point.